Howdy, folks. Sorry I'm late. I got locked out of the courthouse. I forgot I had to bring my card key, so I had to break out a couple windows and usual Butte stuff. So anyway, call the Economic Development Committee meeting of November 18th, 2020 to order at 6:05. Hello, everyone, and let's see. Do a roll call here. I'm present, I think. Mr. Fisher, I saw.
Present.
Mr. Callahan, Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Fredrickson, and Mr. Sorich. And we have Michelle Shea as a guest. And Karen Burns. Okay. We have two things on the agenda tonight, the annual mill levy grant procedures, and then the second one is for Ed Vanderhoff and the Heritage Project. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, I don't know if you've read your email lately. I put together a few things on the mill levy. Everything from the Montana codes annotated to the rating sheet and the request for proposals. I didn't have a copy of the 2019 version, so I think the only thing we changed for the request last year was dates and whatever to update it to the proper date. So basically going on the same request for proposals that we did 2018 and 2019 are identical except for the dates involved in them. I also send out my remembrance of how the process goes. Did you guys get the project plan and take a look at that at all? I think the first thing we have to do is put together we have previous year's closing presentations that kind of got cut off in that. And those, I'm going to say technically, it'd be nice to have those completed by the time that we were interviewing for the next year's ones. But I don't know that there's any need to have them tied to the current or to the current mill levy, other than it's nice to know how those turned out next, so that for the coming year we can make changes to that or see how things go. Commissioner Fredrickson.
Thanks, Chairman Olson, and thanks for putting all of this together. Yeah, I think that I agree with you for the most part. I will say that I think that it's always good to have the previous year present before we make awards, just so we know, because a lot of times we have the same people applying for funds year after year. So it's nice to know if their projects were successful before we hear them asking for more money, I guess is what I'm saying. That's my only suggestion. But I think other than that, I think we can move along, like you said, in both ways. But it seems this will be my third time around on this, and it's usually familiar faces that apply at this point.
Yep, correct. Another thing on that project plan, the dates have no basis in reality. I just connected the tasks together to say we have to get this one completed before we can go to the next one and that sort of thing. So that's another thing that Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to throw this out for discussion. Things are really shut down. A lot of people aren't going to be able to apply for this grant because of just what's going on. So before we spend a whole lot of time and spend a lot of people's wheels, I'm just throwing this out. Should we even be doing it, or can we just hold the money for next year? I think it's worth discussion.
Okay. I think that's a good question. Mr. Frederickson.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman Olson. I just want to make the comment that, we had the SARTA meeting last night, and they were accepting proposals for events. And they got quite a few applications still, even with COVID. And one thing that they discussed was having a COVID language built into the contract saying that if this doesn't happen, then you have to pay the money back. But they did receive quite a few proposals. So I think people will still apply.
Okay. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. Also, I believe it has to be spent each year. I don't know where I'm reading this, so it has to be used for each year. Or are we even able to kick it to the next year? The question, I don't know where I'm thinking that.
I see that Karen Burns is on, and she could probably answer that, but I'm 99.9% sure that if we don't award all the money, we can carry it over into the next year. Commissioner Callahan.
I believe we're carrying some over this year because it hasn't gotten used. So I think we went through this last year, and there was some that got turned back to us. Just held it over to add to the pot for this year. So I think that's where that goes.
And another thought just popped into my head is that what we could do is go out and do a request for proposal. And if we don't get a lot of them in, or they don't really look what we want, what we want to do, at that point, we'll really know if, COVID is causing anything, or everybody's deciding that they're going to start a new business at home. And they wanted to get that started, or they're doing something tied into COVID or whatever. So, I think there's paperwork involved, but I think it's probably worthwhile to at least go out and look at it. And then at the end we decide, well, this kind of stuff isn't what we want to do. Let's say, and I'm just thinking festivals. By the time, well, who knows what's going to happen in 6 months from now? But I'm gonna bet things are still going to be hopping. Back in April and March and April, when we were looking at this, we were going, oh well, by the middle of summer it'll all be done. And here we are in December or November, still working on it, and it's kind of brought everything to a standstill. So, okay, Mr. Frederickson.
Thanks, Chairman. The one question I have for you, and I went through the documents, and forgive me if they're in there. When did we make awards last year?
Oh,
when did we actually go under contract, I guess, with the projects?
I think it was actually in March. Let's see. Yeah. Well, we had the problems with having to jump through the hoops multiple times due to questions about it. And the final letter that I think was finally taken was, or the request, the 26th of March 2020 is when it came before the council. So the end of March, basically.
So we shouldn't ask those proposals to come in until, I would think that we would give them a year. I'm not sure what the contract says, but I guess maybe we shouldn't even ask the folks to come in until March 2021, right? It doesn't really matter to me, but I just don't know what the contract says.
Okay, and I haven't got a copy of the contract. All I've got the RFP, and let's see if it says in here. It says within 90 days of project completion, they have to do a complete self-evaluation and present to the Council of Commissioners. But it doesn't really put a date on it other than 90 days within 90 days of project completion. Yeah, I don't see anything else in regards to that.
That is right, because it was right before things started to get shut down. I remember. No, yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking also we might just go out and contact, we have to go out and contact them and say, are you guys ready to do a presentation? And see if they're done with it or not. I guess one of my questions is, I also sent out that letter about who we assigned or who we awarded stuff to. Some of those I'm wondering if they actually spent the money on what they were supposed to. The Henri Ra and Folk Festival are two that come to mind. If they were going to do something with Folk Festival and they didn't do it, should we ask? Well, maybe just carry that money over for next year or something like that too. But it might be a time to just go out and contact them and say, "Are you guys?" If we asked, "Are you guys ready to do a presentation?" Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know typically in the past, usually we had this published, early in September. And, they were usually given, the awards were usually given sometime in November. So then, and granted, this is not a typical year. Reason being because people that are making any kind of plans for any events or whatever, they're doing all their planning prior to March. So I'm wondering if March might be just a hair bit late. If we can push that back, let's say, January or February. Because I know, we now have a crystal ball that we can tell what's going on, but I'm just wondering if March may be a little bit too late to be, if anybody's doing any kind of planning for whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I guess what I see is I would expect this to be awarded in January. I mean, assuming we go out and we get 30 people to submit proposals. At that point, we can say, all right, we're going to do this in January, or we get 2 proposals and we say, okay, we'll go back to the drawing board and do it a little bit later when things have settled down. But Commissioner Frederickson.
Thanks, Chairman. Another question that I feel like I should know. Do we award the grant money right after they sign the contract, correct? We don't award it like till after. So Henri Ra and Folk Festival, they already have their money.
That's correct.
So I think that at the very least, we should extend their awards and say that you shouldn't apply. I think that would be the best thing to do, don't you? Rather than saying, we want that money back, reapply.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was thinking, that
Okay.
If they said, oh, we're going to use it for money to publicize the upcoming folk festival, and the folk festival didn't happen and they didn't do any advertisements ahead of schedule, that we should just carry that over. I don't know that we could stop them from submitting another proposal, but anyway, I think we should kind of think, well, you guys got.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we need to be collecting money. I don't want to send Commissioner O'Neill's goons after Brendan to get money from Henri Ra. So.
Yeah, Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Olson. I think if we stop them from reapplying, I think this year's pot's going to be considerable bigger. And maybe there's an opportunity there that they might get a little extra money if they apply again, rather than keep them from applying and just hold them to. We don't know how many people will apply. So, in the past, we've got several people apply, but what happens if we don't get that many people apply and we don't allow them to apply, when they don't have their opportunity to get a little more money? Something to think about.
Yep, Commissioner Sorich. Oh, wait, can I go to Commissioner Fisher? He's over there hiding in the corner and putting his hand up. Commissioner Fisher, I'll let you speak at this time.
Thank you, Chairman Olson. Just to follow a little bit here, I don't think we ever had a report from last year's recipients as of yet.
No,
If we haven't had a report from last year's recipients, we should first receive a report from last year's recipients before we start thinking about awarding this year's applicants. And with that being the case, I do think that that it's probably COVID is here, but it's a good. Some people, you had a good idea, I think, Chairman Olson. I do think with COVID, some people are going to have ideas this term to try and invest some money to do COVID type of things. So I really think we should go back and get a report from what money was spent out of the awarded last time, and then see what we want to do with this type of money. I don't think it's a good idea to hold the money over for another year. Thank you.
Okay. And I think that's in regard to the project plan that I put out. I have them kind of starting at the same time, but they're not connected. It doesn't say you have to have this done before that, but probably we should say we need the presentations done before we get to a certain point in this year's project. So, Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. Excuse me. I agree that if we can possibly get people to report back, if we could get the ball rolling now so we can get the reports and then try to get the monies out by January. And I agree that it could be, questionable with who and how many will apply. But if we shoot that, if we're still in that time frame to get it out by January, would be great. Obviously, last year it got out at March, and it is what it is. And now, I don't think we need to keep the monies we gave out to the other people. I don't feel like we have to give them a full year. I think that they would be fine with coming back to us. Did they just send us a report, or did they come physically talk to us? I can't remember how that worked.
They come and actually make a presentation in front of the council. Okay. So that everybody can see where that money has gone, and it's out in the public, and it could be reported on the paper and whatever. And again, to the full council, that's a good idea to get that done and get it out there, and other folks on the commission might have some ideas too. So, Commissioner Frederickson.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I think I agree with everyone. I think that getting a report from the folks that we gave money to in March would be a great idea, to have them present to council. At least give them the opportunity to say, well, we weren't able to do this, and this is why, and then go from there. I am hesitant, and I get what Commissioner Callahan is saying, where they could go at for more money, but I'm hesitant to give more money to something, an event that we don't know might not happen. It might, Henri Raw might happen, and then, we're out $10,000 and we have nothing to show for it. I don't think that that's what this fund is designed for, but I understand. But I can easily change my mind on that. That's just my initial thought of giving money when nothing's happening.
Okay, and just to insert a little bit here, I think it's probably an idea for us to put some sort of COVID clause or natural disaster clause into the contract to say, if, then, here's how we'll handle it. Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is great discussion. Again, this is a very bizarre year, stuff we've never had to deal with before in the past. So one of the things I'm going to bring up, should we put a limit on how many? If we only get one applicant, are we going to even do it? Or we can't say, well, we've got this extra money and say, we'll give you all 64,000. You know what I'm saying? If it's, should we be looking at putting a minimum on this? Again, this is just out for discussion.
I think that's a good point. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Olson. I do think to go back, once we have the people, the recipients from last year give a report, I think they will tell us if they plan on applying again or what they've done with their money, and then we'll have a good idea. I don't think we're going to have any problem with people applying for money. I mean, I don't think we're going to have people not applying because of COVID. I think people are still going to apply for the money, but I very seriously believe that it's very important for us to see how the money was spent last year and what kind of productivity was made with it before we go moving on to decide what we're going to do with the money this year. Because I think Commissioner Callahan stated right. I think this year we're going to be awarding closer to 80,000 than 60,000 because of the 1 mil is higher and also that there was some carryover money. So I think it's really important that we get a report from the recipients. Thank you.
Okay, yep. Commissioner O'Neill? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I agree. I think we're going to learn a lot of stuff too as they present to us on whether or not they lost money during these times. I know that whatever monies that Folk Fest and all them put out prior to these events being canceled or whatnot. Again, we're going to learn a lot about where they're at, whether certain people need the money or they'll need more money. I think it'll be a really good education of what COVID really did to all them events. So.
Okay. Well, I think also if we do the request for proposals, we could modify it this year to say that we're going out for proposals, and if we want to, we can hold off until next year or not award the full amount, or some way that we can say, who knows what's happening with COVID. Again, that might be under the COVID clause in the contract to say, if we don't get a lot of people applying, or we get a whole bunch of people or whatever, we might want to have an out there to say, yes or no, we're gonna go or not go. So, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you again, Chairman Olson. And I think we're kind of dwelling a little bit maybe on Henri Raw on the Folk Fest, which are a couple major recipients of the monies. But there is a lot of other little people that we gave monies to that are probably not as affected by COVID, or maybe prospered a little bit more through the COVID. Some of them smaller businesses. And this is the whole idea. This 1 mil is to spur some ideas. And through the years, as you know, we've had a few that kind of fell on their face, but we've also had a few that have flourished pretty well. So I think I kind of think of a few of them that smaller awards that may be able to come back this year and show us some real nice results. And maybe that'll influence our decisions a little bit too. But I do think we're going to have a little more money to get distribute this time. I hate to use the word giveaway, distribute this time, but I think Commissioner Callahan is right. We had some money left over, and we may find we have more money left over. And like I said, the mill's a little higher, so we've got some thinking to do on this, and I think we've got to get some reports in and reiterate what we got going. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we need to do then, we need to request Karen Burns to get these other people to start coming in for last year's reports, correct?
That actually will probably be Barb Davies.
Okay.
In years past, it's been Sherry Walsh. We've been kind of trying to put it back over into the Council of Commissioners, and Barb helped last year. But I think Sherry's out on medical leave right now. But she said she would help Barb. But I think we want to get Barb involved in the process, and that was another reason I came up with that project plan, is to say, what do we have to do? What hoops do we have to jump through, et cetera, et cetera. So, Mr. Callahan.
Thanks, Chairman Olson. I was just wondering if maybe Karen Burns wanted to chime in and give us a little bit of what her thoughts might be, or see what she might suggest.
Ms. Burns?
Thank you, Commissioner Olson and Commissioner Callahan and the rest of the committee. I've been listening and I think you've had some great discussion and I am fully on board with the plan you have moving forward. I think it's really important to get reports back in from last year's recipients, see where they're sitting, to see if they haven't completed their projects, if they think there's a chance they can complete them still within that time frame. And I think it's a really important program that you guys run and important to these folks that have received the funds. So I'm all on board with, and our office is on board to assist Barb and help all the way through this process. So we're ready to contact folks and help Barb contact folks and get going.
Okay, that's great. Anybody have any questions for Karen? Yeah, I think it's good that we're going to turn it over to Barb. And like I said, that project plan that I put out, I think we could probably use that in the future. A lot of that stuff is in Sherry's heads and Karen's head as to how we proceed. And if we can write it down, then I'll know which hoops I have to drive, or the next chairman of this committee will have to do that. That's one thing to also think about, is that I'm only going to be on for another little over a month. So we'll have to start thinking about, it's actually council, I think, that assigns the chairman of these committees. So, but I'll still help if I can. So, all right. So
Thank you.
Go ahead. Okay. Any further discussion on that? I was going to kind of go back and summarize our plan of attack. I think first of all, we kind of agreed that we need to get last year's awardees to come in and make a presentation, or at least get a feeling for if they're all done with their projects, or they're still sitting on the money and they're waiting for COVID to go away, or whatever. But get a feel there. But then we can also start maybe looking at putting the request for proposals together and maybe do a little work on that, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, I guess. But I think it's important to get the folks from last year in and see how things have turned out and what worked and what didn't, and see if we have more money or not. One of the other things that comes to mind, we were talking about if they haven't spent their money and they're not going to do the project, do we call the money back? It also comes to mind that not last year, but the previous year, we awarded money to the Covalite Theater, and the person who was supposed to get the money didn't, and the other person took the money, and we've never heard hide nor hair about that project. I think there needs to be a way that we can go back and say, well, you said you were going to do X and you haven't done it. We need to get the money back. I think that's what the contract's for. We're going to give you this money and we expect you to come out and work on this project. If you don't do that, you're not abiding to the rules or the agreement that we came to. So they should return the money. That's my personal opinion on that too. So does that sound like Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chairman Olson, and sorry for interrupting you, but I did want to thank you for saying you would assist Ian after your term ends, and I'm happy to hear that, because I think you've done a good job on this. The other thing is reiterating what you're speaking of there. Evil Knievel Days got $25,000 from SARTA, and that money never was recovered, as far as I know either. Sometimes these things happen, but I agree with you. We should do our best to try and keep the recipients in line, and I know it's a tough thing to do, but I think when we get a report from them, we got to be certain that COVID is not an excuse for non-performance, although sometimes COVID is going to cause grief with some businesses, but other recipients, COVID should not be affected, and I think we got to evaluate that at that time. So thank you for your service, and I appreciate what you do and look forward to working in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. On that note, with the two things you mentioned, the Covalite and the Evil Knievel, I mean, obviously, I agree. How do you go back and, open that up or what? But what teeth do we have, or what could we do moving forward? I agree. Contract's a contract. Even how to Evil Knievel days is gone, but I don't know. It just kind of makes you wonder. That I agree. Whatever that should be one top priority we should put in there. Not that should discourage anybody. I'm not saying I won't send the boys after anybody. I mean, Sean got me all excited now. I just got my boys texting me looking for work now. So, I mean, I really think we ought to do a good job on that and try to figure out whatever so we can send the boys. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the putting it in the contract, if it isn't there already, I to be honest with you, I don't think I've read the contract in a while, and I don't think it would hurt to put something like that in the contract, that if you fail to perform, you need to refund the money. The other case is, all right, are we going to spend it, time to get $500 from somebody that didn't do what they said they were going to do with it? It's to take us more, but if it's $10,000 or $20,000, it might be worthwhile to do that. But again, put that in the agreement so that people know that when they sign on the line, we expect them to do something. It isn't just, here's some money, have a good day, and come back and tell us lies a year from now. That's what I want to avoid, is at least lay it out that if they don't perform or they are unable to perform, that we expect the money to come back or be extended. I mean, that might be the thing also, is with thinking that something in there that should a national disaster occur, we can extend the time limit on when they have to perform their project. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thanks, Chairman. I think that, that Covalite, I think I think we do a pretty good job of picking good projects and good people that are going to follow through. That was one thing that just it just happened. And I don't think it was all that. I mean, money's money and it is taxpayer money. I understand that, but it wasn't even close to 20 grand. I think it was just a few $1,000s is what we awarded to them. And I don't even think they're having a film festival or they're doing anything. Last I heard, one of the guys is going to school up at Tech. So, I mean, I think that they both moved on from this whole thing. That being said, if they ever apply again, I think we would say no. That's just my 2 cents. But I think we do a pretty good job of picking some pretty good projects.
Yep. Okay. Joe Willauer's on the line also. Joe, do you have any input on any of the things we've talked about?
No, I certainly appreciate the feedback from you guys on the process. As one writes and answers to a lot of grants, the reporting side of it's certainly standard, and I think that's a really good component of it. I personally don't know that you guys will have an issue for getting projects submitted. I know with the funding we've been seeing and just kind of in general, our view of the business community, it seems like a lot of people are looking for resources right now, and especially with what COVID's doing currently, I think I don't think getting any sort of applications will be much of an issue. But that's just my personal opinion. But no, we look, as a recipient as well. We look forward to reporting back to you guys and seeing how the process goes.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to weigh in on the collection of the unused funds also. I guess we should use the Honorary Raw as a kind of an example. They lay out a very good expenditure report, what the money has been used for. I think we're probably going to have to, if we want it, we're just going to have to ask these people, what was the money for, and show us. And so maybe that's someplace we have been a little bit lax, because some of these people, they just come in and say, this is what we've used it for, and they haven't really shown everything. So is that something that we want to require them to have a better financials when they come back and give us a report.
I think that's probably true. You know, a lot of it, like we're saying, if the Covalite comes and asks for money again, I think we're going to look at them a little bit deeper than we do with our normal folks. One of the things that, and I've been pushing along for a couple of years, is to somehow put into the application and presentation sections for them to show how the $10,000 that they got or whatever, how it has increased the development, not just the economic activity. That's what I've been harping on, is that you know, we're not just throwing money out to granting money to the community for a one-time shot. I think we need to look at which projects that we give money to. It's an investment, and it will return that investment over 5 years, you know, somehow, and focus on that rather than, oh yes, there's a lot of activity from the folk festival, or should we go with Alpha Technology, and they've got another program, and you know, they've employed 5 people in that project up at Montana Tech. That's the kind of thing that I'd also like to say. You know, the money that you've gotten, what am I going to see 5 years from now from that investment, or 2 years from now, or whatever? At least talk about that. You know, 5 years from now, we're not going to go back and say, now you said, but at least take it as an investment rather than putting it under the mattress and distributing it back out to the community. Take it out of the taxpayer's pocket and handing it off to another taxpayer to employ people for 6 months or whatever. So, okay, any further discussion on that? But I guess what I'm going to go with right now is to contact Barb and have her start contacting last year's recipients and have them, well, first of all, find out if they're ready to present, or if, you know, 3/4 of them still haven't spent the money and their projects aren't done. That might change the way we handle it. But if she contacts people and they say, yeah, we're done, when would you like us to do a presentation? We can tentatively schedule presentations for the council of the whole, and say, okay, would you be willing to do a presentation on the 15th of December? I haven't looked at the calendar, but and I think in the past we've had two Wednesdays in a row or something like that, where they had an opportunity. If they didn't make it to the first one, they could make it to the second one. Also, we don't have 3 hours of people making presentations in the committee of the whole, and take up a lot of the time there. So, Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. That's what I have no idea how long and how many Wednesdays we need to get to be able to give money out by January. That was my other thing, because we have to give out public notice,
Right,
for all that stuff. I mean, I'm not even going to pretend I could even look at the calendar and go there. I'm going to be honest. Who does that? That's my question.
who does the scheduling?
Well, how do we get to where we can figure out between the other people, you know, the people coming to give their presentations and getting it out there so we can get applicants, so we can give money out by January? Are we trying to fit a lot in by the end of January? Is that possible? What I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that's why I was kind of putting that spreadsheet or the project plan together, is that, like I said, I didn't put the dates on there, and you know, it's going to take, we have to have 2 weeks public notice in the paper for this before that can happen, and it has to happen on the council of the whole rather than the regular meeting or wherever we want to schedule it. And so that's why I put that together, is so we can at least say, okay, for this year, let's see if we do hand out or start the RFP of the 15th of December. I'm just pulling numbers or dates off the top of my head, see if that would work. Okay, then we go to this meeting, and that's where people come in and do their presentations. And we also have to have our committee meeting. We usually have been able to do it in 2 shots, 2 weeks, where they come in and do a presentation. And I don't know if it was a week apart or Tuesday and a Thursday or something like that they'd come in and do their presentation. That's kind of where I'm going with that. I'm going to say that I kind of slapped that together at the last minute, and I hadn't really laid out the timeline and how long I have to wait between one thing and another. It's more just, oh, we need to do this first and that second, and this has to be done before that gets underway, et cetera. So I guess for right now, what I'm going to do is focus on getting Barb to go out and contact the recipients from last year. I may come up with a recommended date. Would you be able to present by the day before Christmas, whatever meeting that would be, as a tentative plan, and maybe tentatively schedule that based on what they come back with. They say, well, no, we won't be ready until January to do the presentation, and maybe that's what we'll do is delay the presentation until mid-January, because we're coming up on it's the holidays from Thanksgiving to New Year's Day, basically. So we lose the month of December somewhat, where that seems to tie into everybody's plans. Is I'm going to be gone from Christmas through New Year's, that sort of thing. So anyway, I'll start working with her to get those folks contacted, and we'll start down that path. And then I'll also put some more detail into the project plan. Come up with some dates and say, okay, if we're going to get it done by mid-January, work backwards from there and say, oh, it's not going to work, or we'll start doing that. But again, we'll probably not start the RFP official publishing and all that until later, until we get a feel for how many people are going to do the presentations, that sort of thing. Okay, Commissioner O'Neill?
Thanks. I mean, if you any help needed with that too, would hate to put that all on you to get that done. I don't want to. I hope we don't have to stretch it out if we're waiting for certain people can't. I know it's a tough time of the year, but I guess I don't know how we forcefully make people come present, which I know we can't do that, but I just don't want to. It'd be terrible if we were stretched out again to March, giving out the monies, if you will. And I'm just talking out loud here. I'm not sure how we control that. The pressure shouldn't be on you, Chairman Olson, just to say, hey, good luck. Let us know when that is, and we'll be here. So.
Okay. Well, I'll see how it works out. I was just kind of throwing that out. I think we've had a good discussion here tonight and whatever. So I'll let you know and keep you apprised of what I'm doing and what Barb's found out and what she's ready to do. And like I said, as I update that plan, I'll put real dates in there and some plan it out a little bit. So and I'm gonna probably work with Karen and Barb and probably also Sherry to say, what am I missing here? Because it's almost every year ago now. Who do we do? When do we do this? When do we publish that? Et cetera, et cetera. And if we get it laid out this year, in the future, anybody will be able to say, oh, okay, it generally takes a month and a half to get this completed, and they'll have a plan to go with. So, all right. So that's the discussion on the annual mill levy. I'm going to go to the first communication, number 2020-28, Ed Vanderab, Heritage Project Chairman, requesting Council Commissioners and the Economic Development Committee to encourage and facilitate the formation of a local heritage area and local heritage area coalition. So, to bring you up to date on that, I talked with Holly Sandborg, or Sandburn. Anyway, she's from the National Parks Conservation Association, and out of Bozeman. That's the lady we've been talking about for a while. And she's been talking to Mary McCormick and Ed Vanderob about it. And I think what my feeling is that she said, I'm trying to get a coalition in Butte to come up with a plan that Butte wants, and not just the one that Ed Vanderob or Dan Olson wants. We need to have historical preservation and economic development, and parks and rec and whatever. Get a group of people together and find out what the common goals of those are of the community, and not the Economic Development Committee. And I think Ed realizes that she's working on that we're not going to drop the ball here. And my comment to her also was, there's a lot more things involved in the heritage area besides economic development. I think there's a lot of departments that need to be involved. And also what I put out to her is that I think we need to get the community together in small committees or a larger group, and take into account what each group would like to see, and see if we can come up with a common goal. And then when we need the support of the bureaucracy and the county government, then we can bring it back in and say, all right, here's what we need from the Council of Commissioners. This is what we need from Parks and Rec. Here's what we need from the historical preservation folks. Her feeling was that it's not at that level yet. She says there's a lot of interest in it, but she wants to be the coordinator of that and say, okay, what do you feel? What do you feel? Can you two come to agreement on this? And we'll kind of come up with a plan, and then bring that plan back to Butte-Silver Bow to work on. And and I think Ed doesn't expect us to solve it all here, but he just wants to make sure that it doesn't die. And I don't think it'll die. I think the community is out there. For instance, one of the groups that she's been talking to is, if you folks, we were talking about the uptown or master plan for uptown, and that group that's trying to put together the master plan that we were talking about with, what was it, Mr. Fisher can probably, was it $85,000 that we're going to work with that group, Mr. Fisher?
Thank you, Chairman Olson. This has been on our agenda since January of 2020. And, Ed asked over and over in this, it says, he would like us to encourage and facilitate the formation. Well, I don't know how this committee is going to encourage and facilitate a Butte-Anaconda local heritage. I mean, I just don't know if this is in our wheelhouse. I want to help. I'd like to do the best, but it's been on here for a year, and the $185,000 that's being spent in Uptown Butte. This isn't just Uptown Butte. They're talking about Anaconda area. They're talking about all over. I mean, I'm just not certain how much longer we can keep this on our agenda or what we're going to do. I mean, Chairman Olson, you went above and beyond by contacting the people you've talked to, and I'm sure they're telling you all they know and what they can do, but I'm just not certain that we're going to get this thing put together like Ed wants us to. And I think if Ed wants to get this put together, we as commissioners are fully behind it, I'm sure, but he's got to get with either like the chamber or, the Uptown committee that like that woman or person from the Finland Hotel, and maybe Karen and them. I just don't think as Economic Development Committee, we are going to be able to encourage and facilitate, and he uses that word quite a bit. So I hope for the best, but I guess the other side of the coin is I kind of planning for the worst on a little bit of this. So.
Okay, and I actually have a recommendation, but I was going to listen to what you guys had to say too. But we're on the same path, and that's not always good for us, Jude. Mr. Frederickson.
Thank you, Chairman. And thanks for that comment, Commissioner Fisher. I agree with you 100%. I will say that there is a group in Cascade County that is working on this very thing. It's called Big Sky Heritage Area. And they've been working on it all summer. They've actually created a group. They have a board. I think they're their own separate, entity. And we're not even close to there. And I agree with Commissioner Fisher. I don't think that Economic Development Committee is what should be forming this group. Because I mean, you're going to need not just council people. You're going to need folks from Anaconda, Deer Lodge County, Silver Bow County. I mean, this is a quite the undertaking. And I'll send the link, or if you just want to look it up yourself, it's Big Sky Heritage Area, and they are miles ahead of Ed and us on this thing. So I still think it's probably a good idea worth looking into and, coming together. And I think it would be great. It sounds like Great Falls and Cascade County, from what I've done research, it's more along the Missouri River, and that's their heritage area. And I think that our heritage area uptown and with Anaconda and everyone knows our history, but promoting that as a heritage area, I think that that's something worth looking into. But this isn't what this committee is set up to do. And so check out Big Sky Heritage Area. They have a website. They have all their documents and ducks in a row. And so I think that if we were to do something, we should base it off of what they're doing and see what they're doing. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. A question: is the Big Sky Heritage one, is that started by the government, or is it started by a group? Again, I'm not trying to be negative, but all these groups that we need to be started, there's groups for everything. Why do they need the government to start a group? You get it going, get the group going, get it started, charter it up, and start making it rain. Go get it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, they created the nonprofit to go along and promote this thing, and that group works with the National Park Service or the National Heritage Area. And that, from what I can tell, there's a Cascade County Commissioner on that group. There's also a Great Falls City Council person on that group. And numerous other people, chamber people, business people. So it's a collaborative effort. It's not just Great Falls City Council's Economic Development Group putting this thing together,
Okay. Mr. Fisher, do you have a motion to present? So make your motion by hitting the unmute button first.
Thank you. Yeah. If Ed wanted to get a group together and submit for funding, with the money we're talking about, we would certainly take it under consideration if he had a group for the BHS Heritage projects. Maybe give him some startup funding out of the money we talked about here in our previous agenda item. So that's something that him to think about. But with that being said, I think that I would make a motion at this time that we should note and place on file communication.
2020.
Yeah. 2020-28, I believe it is.
Okay.
Second
by, okay, Mr. O'Neill. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to note and place on file. And I think I can, from what Holly said, Ed kind of knows that this is the direction that's going to take. So any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Passes unanimously. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stay here in the rest of the night. Thank you. See you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chairman Olson.
Thank you.
Mr. Olson.
Thanks, guys.